High Noon Sundays was created to give prominent figures in the cannabis industry a platform to introduce themselves and their businesses to the thriving Grow Sisters community. So grab a joint or cannabis treat of your choice and join us for High Noon Sundays. Hey everyone, welcome back to High Noon Sundays. I am Siobhan Danger Darwish, and today I am so excited because we are connecting with the roots of the entire cannabis movement. We are speaking with Joe from Sweetleaf Collective today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, what a great Sunday. Joe, in the short version, give us, that don't know about Sweetleaf, give us a little bit of information.
All right, so I'm Sweetleaf Joe, and I'm the founder and director of the Sweetleaf Collective, and we provide free cannabis to low-income, terminally ill Californians. And since we began in 1996, we have helped facilitate the giveaway of over $2 million worth of compassionate cannabis. And Sweetleaf is a true nonprofit in the industry. We don't involve ourselves in sales. We only work to provide free cannabis to those who need it most.
Awesome. Very, very cool. I was turned on to Sweetleaf Compassion early. I guess you and I met around 2017, I suppose it would be. And since then, I've just watched you go through so much as a nonprofit, and with the changing medical cannabis into the compassionate programs, and I just really want to commend you for everything that you have done for the cannabis patients, because what you are doing is almost exactly the opposite of what we're seeing right now in the cannabis industry, which is these huge companies that want to make a ton of money, and everyone has kind of bulldozed the compassion fact, the roots, like I said, of this whole industry movement. And so it's been really amazing watching Sweetleaf prevail, and I'm just so grateful for that and so proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so when we met, you and I actually met through Dennis Perone. Speaking of cannabis roots in this particular movement, if you do not know who Dennis Perone is, please go educate yourself. Dennis Perone was an activist for cannabis. He was one of the people to write the Proposition 215 in 1996. This passed that medical patients could access cannabis. And so this was the first of all of the legalization movement, the first of the Compassionate Act, the first of pretty much everything that we know now in cannabis is due to those forefathers, including mostly Dennis Perone. And so Joe and I were involved in working with Dennis and doing things with him. I see so much of Dennis in your work, Joe, and I just love that you're carrying that on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Dennis was the trailblazer, and he really changed the way the public thought about cannabis because of compassion. Absolutely. He was giving away free cannabis with Brownie Mary in the late 80s to HIV and AIDS patients, and it was dramatically helping their health and their well-being. And I think that was a real pivotal moment for the cannabis industry because it changed the way people thought. A lot of elderly people started to realize that it could be used as a medicine and that it wasn't just a really bad drug like a lot of the other Schedule I drugs. And that's a key moment in cannabis history because it started normalizing it, and it really it brings a lot of health and healing to people, and he's the one who brought that to the forefront. So definitely, he's one of my role models, one of my heroes. He was an incredible person that did a lot for this plant.
Truly. Shout out to Dennis Peron and all of those who stood alongside of him. This is a man that was prosecuted for what he believed in. This was a man who had been raided multiple times. This was a man who had been shot. He was shot multiple times. I mean, talk about, really being an advocate. We use that term advocate now, and it's kind of like, oh, that's cool, you like cannabis? Well, let's remember the people who were out there talking about it, who actually got raided, who went to jail, who were shot, and so big honor to them. So in that movement that was created with Proposition 215 and all of those true advocates that were moving that, started that momentum, Sweetleaf Compassion was born. And I think that this is something that really is not being talked about enough. And so please tell us more about the collective.
So pre-Proposition 64, we had been bike delivering free medical cannabis to our patients in San Francisco. And we were in full compliance with Proposition 215, and we were a collective and, doing everything compliantly. And then Proposition 64 was enacted, and unfortunately there was a huge oversight in that law, and there wasn't any distinction between commercial and non-commercial cannabis. And that's a big issue, because what that implied is that non-commercial cannabis, free cannabis given away to those who need it most, would be subject to the same taxes as cannabis that was being sold. And that created a huge hurdle for compassionate groups to continue operation.
It's terrible.
And, I feel like a lot with Proposition 64, everybody was just thinking in terms of dollars, and there wasn't really an acknowledgement about the nonprofit sector in this industry.
Yeah.
And so it's sad. It was an oversight. Thankfully, we got that changed. We lobbied very hard for 2 years with Senator Wiener, and he had a bill in 2018 called SB 829, which made it to the governor's desk, and then Jerry Brown vetoed it. I don't think he really understood when he vetoed that he was signing the death warrant for a lot of terminally ill patients who were then not going to be able to have access to their medicine.
How heavy.
So then we did SB 34, and we did this exact same bill again. It got back to the governor's desk. This time we had a new governor, Governor Newsom, and he signed it. And so that bill, which is called the Dennis Peron and Brownie Mary Compassion Act, named after two of the founders of Compassionate Cannabis, now it has been implemented into law as of March 1st. So let's rewind back to 2018 and SB 420, which was the law creating collectives under Proposition 215. It was still in effect, but it was going to sunset the beginning of 2019. So we had an interesting time period where collectives were still allowed to operate, but Proposition 64 had been implemented. And so for our final collective giveaway, where we could actually still be plant touching, we gave away over 40 pounds in 4 hours to our patients. And we did this at Dennis Peron's house. And we really wanted to show the legacy of compassion. That's why we did it at Dennis's house, because the table that we were giving away the cannabis at was also the table where Proposition 215 was written.
Aww.
And we weren't sure when we were going to be able to get cannabis to our patients again, so we maxed them all out on their daily limit, which was 8 ounces. So we gave 80 patients, a little over 80 patients, a pound each in 4 hours. It had a retail value of something like $150,000.
Wow. Beautiful.
And we did it right before Christmas. We did it in December 2018. In January 2019 was when it would be no longer legal for us to give away cannabis.
Right.
So that was our last traditional compliant Proposition 215 giveaway. Then we had to do a bunch of hustling and running around to try to figure out what we were going to do in this new regulated marketplace, because all of our legal counsel told us we need to be Proposition 64 compliant. So we knew we had to do 2 things. One of the main things was we needed to start fundraising for the sole purpose of paying the taxes on the compassionate cannabis that we were going to give away.
Wow, right.
Because at this time period, compassionate cannabis was still subject to tax, and it was subject to the tax based on the retail value of the cannabis, regardless of if it was being given away and no one was paying anything. So what we did is we started selling branded lighters at dispensaries around the state.
Cool.
And for each $3 lighter that was purchased, Sweetleaf was able to pay the taxes on 1/8 of compassionate cannabis and get it into the hands of a low-income terminally ill patient.
Wow, I love this. And so is this lighter thing still going on? Can people still be purchasing these lighters to support the Sweetleaf Collective?
It is still going on. So now, and I don't know if this is the right place for it, but with SB 34 being enacted, and now we don't have taxes on compassionate cannabis, now the funding raised is going towards overhead on the Sweetleaf project, and we're in the process of expanding compassion.
Love it. Expand
so that's really
compassion.
Great. So I'll go back to post 2018. Proposition 215 is no longer relevant in the sense of collectives. It was still relevant in the sense for an individual medical patient, but collectives were no longer seen as legal entities and compliant entities in 2019. So what we did is we partnered with Spark in San Francisco. They have a really big dispensary on Mission Street near downtown, and they were willing to let us send patients there if we could get donated cannabis also donated and gotten there. So then we started working with Flocana, we worked with Happy Day Farms, and we started getting cannabis back out to our patients. And so that began around June, which was a good timing because that was around the time that the previous 2018 donations were running out for our patients. And so we were able to, unfortunately, not see all of our patients. We had to reduce the amount that we were giving away from 1.5 ounces a month to 100 patients down to 1 ounce a month for only 50 patients. So then we had to randomly select patients about who would be able to receive the cannabis, and it took us down to about 1/3 of our regular pre-Proposition 64 capacity. So that was a little bit difficult for us because we wanted to provide more cannabis, but at the same time, we were doing something, and we felt that doing something was better than doing nothing. We did hear back from our patients that because they didn't receive the same amount of medicine that they had previously, that their health was being affected. So that was also very difficult to be in the middle of and to try to explain to patients how we were fighting on the state level to remove the taxes so that we could once again give them an ounce and a half a month every month, not just an ounce a month, maybe every other month.
Right.
So that was difficult, but it was really good for us because we started identifying a whole bunch of partners in the supply chain. And I'd just like to, give some shouts out. Spark really helped out a lot. We couldn't have done this without them.
Yeah.
Them paying their bud tenders to give out the cannabis to our patients was just really, really crucial. I'd also like to thank Happy Day Farms. They made a large donation, and we got that all out to our patients. I'd like to thank Sonoma Lab Works and Resco and CannaSafe. These are all labs that are doing free lab testing for us when we have expired product that's donated or when we have fresh flower that has yet to be tested.
Fantastic.
Other people, Filigreen also, I feel like Filigreen is on the same level as Spark for me, where Filigreen is a distributor that has been handling all the distribution of our lighters. And again, we wouldn't have been able to give away all the cannabis that we did over the past 10 months if we had not been doing this fundraiser.
Wow.
So yeah, they're really, really big, platinum level partners. And we really appreciate the work that they've done for Compassion.
Oh, most absolutely. We appreciate them too, on this end, because so deeply, like I said earlier, it's something that is just being overlooked. This system, just to start back at the beginning, you gave us this really beautiful timeline, and I want to kind of look at that once again, because you're talking about a span of 5 or 6 years, but in this, that was such a roller coaster for you, and so starting back in the beginning with this compassion movement, which started with Proposition 215, this worked. Proposition 215 worked. It is what really was largely instrumental in the Compassionate Act, but also building Humboldt County. To have a medical license enabled or allowed us farmers here to grow under a patient farmer, agreement. And that was really beautiful, for myself. I had a very close connection to those people who were my patients, that I was growing for. I knew them. I spoke directly to them. I was able to ask them what type of, ailment they had, and I could grow for them that cannabis, and so doing away with Proposition 215 was largely, it was painful for everyone, and there was a lot of people out there, there's a lot of patients who cannot afford to do that, and they really looked towards people, farmers who wanted to donate that. And I think that has been largely lost since it's gone from a movement to an industry. So with the 215, people were able to farm specifically for their patients, but now that that's not happening, what we're seeing is the movement become an industry. And with becoming an industry, we've all hit these road bumps, and I'm listening to your timeline of what Sweetleaf Collective has gone through, and you started this really beautiful thing that you were delivering cannabis on bikes. It evolved into what is now, a decent sized nonprofit. You are doing incredible things in the cannabis space. Hearing the issues that you had with Proposition 215 are really dear to my heart, unfortunately, because that proposition, I still would like for us all to really raise an eyebrow on that situation, because that was voted for by the people. We voted, for all of these really incredible things to happen. There was a lot of cannabis people, I don't want to call them criminals, unfortunately, that's the word that they use, but people who have been, put into jail for cannabis misdemeanors, those types of things. That was all supposed to get off. There was a huge issue with the acreage cap that was blown off when 64 was changed. So we all voted for these things that were really making it look like the industry was really moving in a good direction. And then overnight, without telling anyone, Proposition 64 was drastically changed. And I have major issues with this. It affected the compassion collectives. It affected a lot of things. But coming from a farmer's point of view, we voted for Proposition 64 to have an acreage cap. And what that means is that, farms could only have so much acreage. And that was really hopeful for the small craft cannabis farmer. And so naturally, as the first permitted farm in the state of California, I was out there telling people, please go get permitted. They're putting this acreage cap on for the next 5 years. This is our opportunity. And then they blew that thing off overnight. And the people who had already gone and applied for their licensing, we went and applied. And then in the end, only 20% or so of those farmers that applied were able even to make it because of all of the other regulations that were changed in 64. So I'm really hearing you on that. And I really want us to remember that something went wrong there. There's a lot of things that we don't talk about. There's a lot of fishy things that get questioned about these big companies that kind of just or government bodies, that get looked over. And so I just really applaud you for making it as far as you have, because it sounds like the compassion side of what has become the industry is really been on a roller coaster. And to still have you here and to have the people that reached out and helped you and helped compassion and helped these patients along, it's really commendable. And I just really want to continue to encourage people to look into Sweetleaf Collective. Please donate to what Sweetleaf Collective is doing, because you really truly are one of the oldest, the most rooted, and one of the most really pushing for this. And there are other compassionate groups out there, and I hope that in other states, those of you listening to this podcast, I hope that you're hearing this. If you're interested in starting your own collective, or if this is something that you would like to donate to or have more questions, please connect with Joe, ask him about the Sweetleaf Collective, and love them, support them. And this is a very, very serious thing that you are addressing head on. I'm so happy to help you and get the word out in any way that I can. Is there anything coming up for Sweetleaf that we should know, love, and support?
We don't have anything on the calendar right now. We're looking into possibly doing a fundraiser down in Southern California. One way we are raising funds right now is we are getting fiscally sponsored by a nonprofit, and they are helping us do an online fundraising campaign. And so hopefully we'll get that link in this podcast so listeners can donate if they like.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, all of the links that we spoke about today will be in the bottom of the podcast here, just so that you can go back and reference that. Please go follow Sweetleaf Collective on all of their social media. Keep up with what they're doing. Please support compassion in this industry as it's evolving from a movement into a bigger, more structured entity. With that, I am going to take a hit of this Humble Alchemy vape that I have. I've been really enjoying this. I'm not usually someone who vapes, but I got a little fearful in the vape scare, and so I did a ton of research, and I found out that there are a lot of companies that are doing really well and clean with this. So happy High Noon Sundays, everyone. I'm going to hit this vape. And Joe, what are you indulging in this beautiful Sunday afternoon?
These days I've been smoking some great flower. It's kind of a mixed bag of strains, and it's from Lagniappe Farms, right down the road from where I live, up here in Trinity County.
Fantastic. Well, Lagniappe happens to be one of the Know Your Farmer for my Know Your Farmer series this year. They are dear friends of mine, and they grow some fire weed, some seriously chronic
their stuff
cannabis.
Is great. It's so great. It's so crystally.
And
it's
just
really
healthy.
Impressive.
Talk about a healthy, happy plant. Yeah. We did do a lot of videos with them last season. So if you're curious about Lagniappe, please go check out the Know Your Farmer series. You can hashtag Know Your Farmer series on all of the social media networks and find any of that information. You can go on to Instagram, where we have an entire page for the Know Your Farmer, Lagniappe, and all of their video content that we have done for them is on there. They are truly the quintessential small family farm here in Humboldt County, Southern Humboldt. And we love them too. That's exciting that you have your hands on some of that. We're also selling their merchandise on our online store, and so please go support the small farmers. If you cannot buy their cannabis because you are not located in the state of California, then please support them any other way that you can. And one of those ways is by purchasing their incredibly awesome dope swag merchandise from thegrowsisters.com dope swag. So on that plug, Joe, was there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to in closing?
We're about to start a partnership with Cornerstone Collective in Southern California. Ooh. And we are expanding Sweetleaf down to the southern part of the state, and it feels really good. Cornerstone is a great dispensary. They're really patient focused. They really care about their patients. They have cannabis medicines for a whole bunch of different ailments, and we're just really excited to start working with them.
Yay, Cornerstone. That's fantastic. I'm excited for Sweetleaf Collective to expand. It is something that is absolutely needed, unfortunately looked over, and it's a very, very big topic. So everyone, please start bringing back in compassion. Let's be looking towards the groups that are supporting these patients that don't necessarily have the ability to get their own medication. This is real. So we love you, Sweetleaf. Thank you so much, Sweetleaf Joe. I just am very excited to see more from you.
2018 and 2019 saw a dramatic reduction in compassion. And what we're going to see now with the implementation of SB 34, the Dennis Perone and Brownie Mary Passion Act, is we're going to see an increase of act. And it's just really a great time to be alive and to be in compassion. Woo! Because we're just going to be able to take care of more and more people.
Yes.
The lighter fundraiser is going great. And now that money, instead of going to the state to pay taxes, is going to go to expand access to patients.
Yay. Fantastic. Good on you, Joe. You are definitely one of the leaders in compassion, and I'm just honored to know you as a as a friend, and also as someone that I just look up to in the cannabis movement. So cheers to you and Sweetleaf. We love you all, and happy High Noon Sundays, everyone. Bye.
Bye.